Two years past, the world slowed down. We built a wall around the town. We learned to farm, we learned to clean, to fight the threats that lay unseen. The global markets were a dream. We chased the fading northern stream, but sanitation slipped away in the sweetness of the sticky day. The water's fragile, the waste is grim. The parasites swam to the brim. We fought the fly upon the food, but didn't know what it pursued. I was working near the wood when Gabriel screamed misunderstood. He clutched his shoulders, shaking cold, the story centuries old. Under his shirt, beneath the sun, I saw the terrible thing begun. A mound of red, a rising sore, pulsating right outside the door. The flies exhalate in silent stealth, now feeding on my boy's own health. A parasitic growing dread, a tiny monster being fed. The garden of the flesh began violating the heart of man. A tiny horror, hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical, unseen machine, planting a terror, dark and mean. The boil under the collar waits, opening up the final gates. I knew the cure, the crude command, a horror forced out by my hand, to smother it, to cut the air, a desperate act of cold despair. I held him close, my shaking son, a battle that had just begun. I hummed a tune, a shaky prayer, while trapping the beast that nested there. The screaming told the peaceful air, a raw wild sound beyond compare. This wasn't just a dying tree, this was a biological injury. Saw the dark thing try to rise, the fear reflected in his eyes. The meiosis, the horror plane, a vile newcomer brought by rain. A gardener tending its own root, living off the life of fruit. I pulled it out, a small dark bean, the most disgusting thing I've seen. I crushed the parasite with speed, a final necessary deed. But the sight remains, the shame is deep, the terror that the children keep. The garden of the flesh began violating the heart of man. A tiny horror, hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical, unseen machine, planting a terror, dark and mean. The boil under the collar waits, opening up the final gates. We survived the cold, we survived the lack, but you can't push biology back when the life inside starts to turn. The final lesson we must learn, the foreign fly, it came to feast, a violation of the least. I looked at him, pale and so small, after surviving the final fall. The true plague is the loss of trust, the certainty of dust to dust, and knowing that beneath the skin the enemy may still get in. The doctor
The Christmas Contagion, a Little Dogpatch novella, by Bill Buckles, digital creator and composer. Episode 4, The Parasite's Touch and the Lost Innocence. 2 years post-Contagion, late summer. The world had settled into a grim, localized survival mode. The global economy was a memory. Little Dogpatch was an island. The greatest threat now was no longer transportation, but internal hygiene, magnified by the imported tropical flies that Joe had first spotted in his pantry. Sanitation had regressed decades. The remaining population clustered close to clean water sources. The problem of exotic fly larvae, the myisis, was becoming a constant, terrifying reality. These foreign, opportunistic flies, perhaps a species that thrived on the excessive honeydew and decay, were now a threat to the living. Joe's 8-year-old son, Gabriel, came running into the cabin one afternoon, clutching his shoulder and screaming. Joe found him shaking, his shirt soaked in sweat. There, under the boy's collarbone, was a red, raised, boil-like sore pulsating visibly. It was the parasitic stage he had only read about in historical texts. A foreign fly had laid its egg, and the larva was now burrowing under his son's skin, creating a painful, growing lesion. Working quickly and with a terrible, icy dread, Joe followed the instructions his neighbor, the old logger vassal, had given him. Cover the opening with thick petroleum jelly. The parasite, suffocated, would eventually emerge. It was a crude, horrific procedure. As he gently held his terrified son, humming a lullaby, Joe thought of the thousands of cases reported in the broken media. The myisis was spreading, especially in the warm, densely populated areas of southern Ontario and Quebec, overwhelming their shattered medical systems. The small, dark, segmented larva, about the size of a bean, eventually wiggled out, pale and glistening. Joe removed it with tweezers and crushed it instantly. As he treated the wound, he looked at his son's face, pale and etched with the memory of pure biological terror. This, Joe realized with a deep, crushing sorrow, was the real face of the foreign plague, the violation of innocence, the introduction of a biological enemy that did not just kill trees, but directly attacked the human body. He sat there, cradling his son, wondering what other vile, unseen parasite was nesting in the dark corners of the silent, collapsing world.
The world slowed down. We built a wall around the town. We learned to farm, we learned to clean, to fight the threats that lay unseen. The global markets were a dream. We chased a fading northern stream, but sanitation slipped away in the sweetness of the sticky day. The water's fragile, the waste is grim. The parasites swam to the brim. We fought the fly upon the food, but didn't know what it pursued. I was working near the wood when Gabriel screamed misunderstood. He clutched his shoulder, shaking cold, a story centuries old. Under his shirt beneath the sun, I saw the terrible thing begun. A mound of red, a rising sore, pulsating right outside the door. A fly's egg laid in silent stealth, now feeding on my boy's own health. A parasitic growing dread, a tiny monster being fed. The garden of the flesh began, violating the heart of man. A tiny horror hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical scene by my hand, to smother it, to cut the air, a desperate act of cold despair. I held him close, my shaking son, a battle that had just begun. I hummed a tune, a shaky prayer, while trapping the beast that nested there. The screaming tore the peaceful air, a raw wild sound beyond compare. This wasn't just a dying tree, this was a biological injury. I saw the dark thing try to rise, the fear reflected in his eyes. The meiosis, the horror plane, a vile newcomer brought by rain. A gardener tending its own root, living off the life of fruit. I pulled it out, a small dark bean, the most disgusting thing I've seen. I crushed a parasite with speed, a final necessary deed. But the sight remains, the shame is deep, the terror that the children keep. The garden of the flesh began, violating the heart of man. A tiny horror, hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical unseen machine, planet terror, dark and mean. The boil under the collar waits, open at the final gates. We survived the cold, we survived the lack, but you can't push biology back when the life inside starts to turn. The final lesson we must learn. The foreign fly, it came to feast, a violation of the least. I looked at him pale and so small, after surviving the final fall. The true plague is a loss of trust, the certainty of dust to dust, and knowing that beneath the skin the enemy may still get in. The world slowed down. We built a wall around the town. We learned to farm, we learned to clean, to fight the threats that lay unseen. The global markets were a dream. We chased the fading northern stream, but sanitation slipped away in the sweetness of the sticky day. The water's fragile, the waste is grim. The parasites swam to the brim. We fought the fly upon the food, but didn't know what it pursued. I was working near the wood when Gabriel screamed misunderstood. He clutched his shoulder, shaking cold, a story centuries old. Under his shirt beneath the sun, I saw the terrible thing begun. A mount of red, a rising sore, pulsating right outside the door. A fly's egg laid in silent stealth, now feeding on my boy's own health. A parasitic growing dread, a tiny monster being fed. The garden of the flesh began, violating the heart of man. A tiny horror hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical unseen machine, planting a terror dark and mean. The boil under the collar waits, opening up the final gates. I knew the cure, the crude command, a horror forced out by my hand to smother it, to cut the air, a desperate act of cold despair. I held him close, my shaking son, a battle that had just begun. I hummed a tune, a shaky prayer, while trapping the beast that nested there. The screaming tore the peaceful air, a raw, wild sound beyond compare. This wasn't just a dying tree, this was a biological injury. I saw the dark thing try to rise, the fear reflected in his eyes. The me assists the horror plane, a vile newcomer brought by rain. A gardener tending its own root, living off the life of fruit. I pulled it out, a small dark bean, the most disgusting thing I've seen. I crushed a parasite with speed, a final necessary deed. But the sight remains, the shame is deep, the terror that the children keep. The garden of the flesh began, violating the heart of man. A tiny horror hard to face, leaving a scar upon his grace. The tropical unseen machine, planting a terror dark and mean. The boil under the collar waits, opening up the final gates. We survived the cold, we survived the lack, but you can't push biology back when the life inside starts to turn. The final lesson we must learn. The foreign fly, it came to feast, a violation of the lease. I looked at him, pale and so small, after surviving the final fall. The true plague is the loss of trust, the certainty of dust to dust, and knowing that beneath the skin the enemy may still get